what I'm going to try to do tonight is, I'm going to show you some examples, including my own shack and the desktop. But we're really going to focus on the desktop, not the whole shack. Okay. But there are things about the desktop that have implications for the whole shack. So I really want you to think about that. Everybody wants the perfect ham shack. And there really is no such thing, because people are different. There's a variety of things that you'll see when we talk about the considerations. So the purpose of this talk is to get you to think like a systems engineer for yourself and your desktop. So it's really a perspective on the human factors, because I'm into comfort. As you can see, I've got really comfy red chair. It's the gaming chair, but I'm not a gamer. So human factors and efficiency and economy of effort, economy of speed, and economy of resources. None of us are made of money. Well, maybe there are a few of us, but not me. So this is the shack in its current form. Let me just say straight up, I'm not happy with it. It's not going to stay this way. On the wall, if you look carefully, there are 7 monitors, 6 in 3x3 configuration, and then a 4th big television sitting up top. And that's what it is. It's a big television sitting up top, although I can throw some things up there if I want. The left 2 monitors are on one computer. The left 2 monitors on the side desk are on another computer that's identical. The computer that's in the corner left, you can see it lit up there with a map. That's the computer I'm actually using right now. That's what I call a housekeeping computer. It's a little Nook. It's an i7 Nook computer with more memory than it should. And then the last, going to the right, you'll see a laptop, which is a personal laptop. And then you'll see a work laptop in the extreme corner with a work monitor above it. During contests, the work computer leaves and the work monitor becomes an extra monitor for contesting or for radio operations or whatever. Let's talk about the monitors. The monitors are all at a comfortable visual height. You can see that just look at my post in the window, and you can see I'm looking at the monitor at a very comfortable level, and my head's not doing one of these staring at the ceiling in order to see the monitor. And it's very comfortable to use those 6 monitors. I can pan left, right without having to do anything special. That alleviates neck fatigue and provides prime focus. Your posture in your chair determines how high your monitors are going to be. If you're going to have monitors, that's the thing to think about in a perfect world. All of those monitors are screwed to the wall. So I can turn the monitors out of the way and get to any equipment that's behind there. Now you'll see in front of 2 of the monitors on the left and 2 monitors on the right, there's a vertical oak panel. That hides all the sins, cables and all sorts of other things. It also in the future will provide a hanging spot for things like pens, microphones, small indicators, maybe even a small displays like a weather station display if I want. You can put that right in here on these verticals, and it's screwed into the front of the shelf. It also has the effect of keeping the shelf, which is a 2x12, from sagging, because think about it. If I have a horizontal bar, a beam, and I put something perpendicular to it to stiffen it, it'll keep it from sagging. So it's like a piece of L stock, not an I-beam, but an L stock. So it's got a little more structural strength. Now behind that plate, that modesty panel, and to the left of the rotator, you can see the rotator control box right here. That's not even the rotator control box that's there now, by the way. There's almost 2 feet of space. So the 2x12 plus the front skirt's about a foot, but there's another foot of space behind that. So cables can fall down and be routed from underneath. You see where the ICOM radios are and the flex radio is here. And you can route cables up behind without having to do anything more than tilt the monitor out of the way, get to it, pull the cable up, drop the cable down, whatever you need to do, boom, boom, and it still looks relatively neat. Now, in a perfect world, you would want 2 or 3 feet behind your desk and you'd walk there. Well, I didn't have that space here. So this was my compromise. It's the monitors stay put. I could destroy this whole desk, shelf and all, and the monitors will still be hanging on the wall, all 7 of them. So think about that just from the standpoint of serviceability, maintainability, and things like that. I have a blow up later of this area up here to the left, the big monitor. That's where my antennas come in. that ridiculous. If I wasn't a 6'2" person who can get up on his tippy toes to unscrew things, it would be totally inaccessible. So this has got to be fixed. So this will be fixed and something will be brought down. Probably this rack will get moved. The desk will be gutted and changed out underneath, and with something new with the same concepts, but it will have a more accessible antenna patch system between radios and antennas. Okay, in the rack is on wheels. It's a 4 foot, maybe a 5 foot rack. I guess 4 foot plus casters. And I've got my amplifiers in there and some network switch gear and such like that. And that makes it very workable. What you can't see is to the left here is the power panel. So literally to my left, I can reach over and cut power to the whole building if I have to. In one shot, just reach for the breaker panel and it's right there. So that's another safety feature. Speakers are mounted here. They're actually mounted better now. Also, the computers are mounted differently. But, you get the basic concept, okay? This is the basics of this, and this was an evolutionary thing. This started as one desk, then I added another piece, then I added a piece to come out deeper. So, as I said, this is going to get changed. Couple of things else that you don't see on here. There's a 60 amp iron power supply, meaning not a switch mode power supply, but a big old fat ferrous core transformer, heavy as the god awfulness power supply in the bottom of the rack, set for 13.8 volts. It feeds a rig runner that's in the rack. And then it feeds a connector that you can't see over here, a big 75 amp Anderson power poles, the kind you use to charge a vehicle. And then it go directly to rig runners that are, again, hidden behind that you can't see. I bought the 80 amp rig runners. I bought 2 of them and it's not enough. So I have to put a third one in here at some point. And that's that. So let's move on. So this is the base. Fine. I'm going to just ask, does anybody have any questions about this picture? I'll take questions on this basic thing just to get it out of the way, because then we're going to go into the design factors as to how to do this better. Anybody? Okay. A rig, that's a good question. A rig runner is a product by West Mountain Radio, and it's been pirated by every Chinese pirate manufacturer. But basically, it takes Anderson power poles, gives you some fusing, and distributes 12 volts or 13.8 volts or whatever you decide across your bus. And it really is a nice, convenient, and safe way to have polarized 12 volt connections and fused.
Yeah, Gordon, I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Where are your grounds and where do they come into the shack?
That's a great question. So this picture is a little old. There are several grounds. So around the building, there is what I call a ring ground. So it's a piece of number 4 wire bonded to a bunch of 8-foot ground rods spaced every 6 to 7 feet, actually, going all the way around this structure. And then other ones are going to be extended to go to the first tower, which is not part of this presentation, but it's about 30 feet behind the shack, 35 feet behind the shack. There's a road 45 tower. So part of the grounding comes in off of the power panel right there. And there's the power panel directly is grounded to that ring right on the wall there. And the other thing is, and you can't see it, but you see this piece of aluminum that's here, Jim? It's aluminum angle. It goes from across the top of the, actually you can see the gray box, the power box. It goes to the corner. I cut it and bent it. It ultimately is now bonded to these antenna entry points, but the antenna entry points are also grounded outside where the lightning arresters are. Lightning arresters are actually about 6 feet down and behind this entry panel here. So there's no lightning arresters here. They're on the ring ground about 8 inches off the ground in a separate box outside. I could do a whole talk on the outside just by itself another day, but that's a good question. One other thing I did want to mention, there's a workbench over here. It's massively cluttered. And there's this 8-foot storage shelf. So this 8-foot storage shelf is, in my long-term goal, is to be removed and so redone so that this whole area becomes more ham shacky and more comfortable seating by eliminating all this storage on this side, and then have storage above and below the workbench as things get deployed. And that's slowly coming about, actually. But it ebbs and flows as I move things in and out to get things done. But this is an 8-foot workbench. One other thing I do want to say, and I'll mention it later again, this is just 3/4 inch birch plywood. It's a single layer. Single layer is okay, better if it's doubled. And we'll talk about that later on. Any more questions about what you see here? Okay, we'll move on. So some people are afforded less, dare I say, commodious, that's a bad pun, accommodations for their ham shack. This is N2OOJ's, Joe Sammartino's. You remember Joe? He did a video, Joe. If someone wants, I can send you the link, but it's in good taste. It has his name on the outside of the door, and he comes in and he said, this is where my wife said when we downsized to our apartment, I could have my ham shack. And the operating position is the toilet seat. This is a bit of humor. So, but he's got his logbook. Moving on. So there's no typical ham. That's the key point here to remember. There's no typical ham. We have different interests. We have different space. We have finances, physical abilities. We have different interests and aspirations. The ham shack is going to reflect our reality, whatever our reality is. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes it needs improvement. Look at Joe's joking ham shack. I think we can find something useful for everybody here. So there was a point where I thought that I needed to have a very compact ham shack. And so I built one that was 4 foot by 2 feet. It uses one of those beautiful 1 inch or so thick, kind of like butcher block pieces you can buy at Home Depot or Lowe's. And I sanded it down and urethaned it with hard urethane. And I built a hutch around it. By the way, it's rolling around on 2 30-inch rolling rack on casters. So it's a little higher than normal, which I like. And then on top of that, again, the shelving has pass-throughs. Both the lower shelving and the upper shelving has pass-throughs to get things up and down and also out the back. It's got holes. It's got permanently mounted monitors, permanently mounted speakers. It's got a permanently mounted power supply. Actually, it used to have a permanently mounted power supply, but it was a switcher on the back that was too acoustically noisy. It was a 50 amp switcher. So I replaced it with this guy over here. But the fundamentals here, this is our laundry room in our current home. And so that's 50 meters from where I'm sitting just right now. And it's got an HF rig. It's got a OCF dipole with 280 feet long. It's got 3 or 4 vertical antennas at various heights around the house on 2 meters and 440. And this is what we use when we don't want to go out in the storm and we want to find out what's going on the bands. So the 2 computers, the left one is a Raspberry Pi 400, and there's the white keyboard for it. And right now, there's mini ATX open frame type of Atom processor with a keyboard and a mouse. And it drives this monitor. Well, that's going to go away, the keyboard. It's going to be replaced by one of those lovely $59 Micro Center computers that we've all been talking about. So for my trouble, instead of looking at a Frankenstein computer here, you're going to see a nice little laptop right here, and it'll have an extra screen above it. So it'll be very nice. So this little wing is not meant to be a cover. The 2 studs used to accommodate a Grandstream phone for Ham Shack hotline, and the space above, I actually had double stuck a extra monitor for various things. So I've got various VHF radios here. I've got a car stereo that I put in home to make it home, and I've got Sirius XM on it. And I also I haven't put it in yet, but there's room for a television as well. Any questions about this guy? All right. Well, to the previous point, you can get to the back of this. This thing rolls around. I can put anywhere I need. And if I had to move it, I can unscrew it from the bay and transport it as 3 pieces, the upper piece and the 2 pedestal. And that's how we got it to Florida, by the way.
Yeah, Gordon, I've got 2 questions here in the chat.
Sure.
One is from Joe as to how deep is the keyboard desktop?
This keyboard desktop?
Yes, I'm assuming so.
The whole desktop is 4 by 2. So from here to here is 4 feet wide, and it's 2 feet deep going backwards. It's a good question.
Sudeepta from Kolkata has, VU2UT has a question. Do you have any lightning arrestor system? What distance do you maintain between the lightning arrestor ground and the nearest RF ground? Okay, so that's a real good question. So in the ham shack where I'm sitting now, the lightning arrestor ground is also the earth ground for power and for any RF. Everything is grounded here. It's called a ring ground. So if the soil has poor conductivity, you make up for it by basically having a big loop of copper wire you bond to a number of ground rods all around. I should do a talk on that. I have one other before I go back to you.
One other small thing now is in the house, we use those same kind of MFJ bulkhead things, except I mounted it vertically next to an air conditioner instead of horizontally, like you'd have a normal sash window. And so its grounds for the house are literally off the household ground right there in the laundry room. The lightning arrestor grounds are where the masts are outside, as each mast or tower comes down. Because I have a tower by the house too for Nancy. We call it Nancy's Tower.
A question from Larry, WA2CNV. What's the weight bearing of the entire unit and how big are the rolling casters?
I think Larry and I could do a dance on this thing and not be a problem. It's two 30-foot, what I call hourglass pedestals. So if you've ever seen them, they're rack pedestals. So they're about 30 inches high, 30 inches deep. And inset, there's rack ears, 19-inch rack ears inset to it. I didn't take a picture of the lower part because it's kind of cluttered with household stuff. But basically, I can mount equipment on the rack below that if I really want to. And it's got a piece of metal that's about 6 inches wide on each side. It's not straight.